Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fastidious episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley.
I like that word.
Fastidious.
Yeah, I like that word. You know, I was actually thinking back when we did the live show, because it was monumental. Which actually hasn't debuted yet. So now people at home are thinking, what do you mean back when? I never saw a live show.
How do you have a live show back when?
It's actually going to be in a few weeks from now, but it was filmed before.
Yeah.
But the reason I brought that up is I was thinking back during the live show that at some point, like when we reach episode 1000 or something, how many more words are you going to have? Because
I don't know. I'm going to have to get a thesaurus or something, man. I'm going to run out of ideas.
Because you can't double up. That's a curse.
Yeah. You ruin yourself.
You've set the precedent that each episode is its own thing. So if you ever double up, we have to quit. The show's over.
When I came up with the idea, I was like, oh, man, I'm setting myself up for this, aren't I?
Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of The Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley. Guys, you can follow me on social media. That is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is at Alan M. Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that because you can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
That's right.
Our guest is going to be on with us here shortly in the next segment because we're doing segments now.
We're doing segments.
This is like a real show.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Look at you, man.
I know. I like it. Well, I dressed up today.
You did?
Because one of our fans, and I'm not going to name who it is, but it's Sherry's oldest son, Ronan, but I'm not going to name who it is, had left a comment on one of our YouTube videos where he said, I really like the new stage that you guys have set up, but you should dress nicer.
Wow.
And I thought, wow.
Is that an insult or is that like...
He was saying, I think what he was saying is that my game is not at the level of the studio, which I could have told him that.
I mean,
it's been
no
like
more
that
t-shirts.
since,
No more t-shirts, man.
It's been like that since day one. But I like being comfortable.
That's right.
I feel like it's more a reflection of the episode. So if it's just us doing solo, or if it's in the middle, because it's Tennessee and it's cold and terrible here today, but like in 6 months it'll be 100 degrees.
That's right.
I don't know if I want to wear a suit and tie every day.
Well, we can keep it cold in here.
Yeah, we'll keep it cold in here. So are you a little bit bummed that the government shutdown is over?
It's horrible. I was having so much fun. I really was.
Well, because of course we all know it wasn't really shut down. They're still taking your taxes. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But the memes were so good. You saw everybody was posting the government shutdown day whatever, and it would be some chaotic picture or whatever. So I'm actually a little bit sad that that's over now.
Yeah. You don't miss the park rangers like protecting the beavers?
I didn't pull up the meme of the week this week.
Okay.
Because I'm just a terrible show host.
No,
and didn't have it prepared.
You have time. You'll find one.
I had one. I just didn't pull it up. Maybe we'll show it at the end segment.
Yeah, we'll show it at the end.
But it was it's the Lord of the Rings. Like remember in the not the first one, the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
It's towards the beginning, and the Merry and Pippin are with them, and they're saying they want to eat. And Aragorn says, well, you've already had breakfast. And they say, yes, but what about second breakfast? So someone took that, and they said, well, we need to shut down the government. And he says, well, we've already had a government shutdown. He says, yeah, but what about second shutdown?
Ooh.
So I don't know. Some people are saying that here, like in another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have another government shutdown.
I think we will.
We can only hope.
I know. That'd be nice.
We can only hope.
It's like a holiday for us.
But the thing, though, is that so Trump caved. Michael Malice said such an awesome tweet. It was something along the lines of, I thought he wanted a wall, but what we got was a cave. And I thought, yeah, it's pretty good. I like that.
That's good.
Yeah. And of course, it's all political theater. It's all BS. And I don't want a wall anyway. So I don't really have it. I don't have a dog in the fight.
That's right.
The government was never shut down.
Nope.
And I don't want a bunch of money appropriated to build a wall anyway.
Right.
But it's just more like at this point, all we can do is just sit back and enjoy the politics and the theater of it all, and just say, well, he lost. They had their little showdown.
That's
and now,
right.
But they were so technically, I guess, from decorums or whatever, that Congress is supposed to invite him to come deliver the State of the
That's
Union.
right.
And so, of course, they were saying, well, if you're gonna keep government shut down, then we're not going to invite you to the State of the Union.
Are you sure that that's not got more to do with him keeping Nancy Pelosi off that plane flight?
Oh, it absolutely has something to do with that. But the only reason I bring that up is that from my perspective, I'm like, oh, that's fine. Let's don't do a State of the Union. I'm totally cool with that not being a thing.
That's right.
I forget who it was. I don't know. I don't know if this goes back to Jefferson. It might. This is a Kevin Gutzman question. We'll have to have him back on because I know he knows the answer. Is that traditionally the State of the Union was actually just a written document, like it was a letter that was written that would be published or that would be delivered to Congress. It wasn't a big speech. Thing with
big dog and pony show like it is.
It wasn't that. I mean, the State of the Union was a document. It wasn't a speech, and so that was something that developed later on, and some people were saying, he should do that. Like, it would be a cool historical thing if he said, well, if you're not going to invite me to deliver the State of the Union, then I'll do like the olden days. I'll write one and I'll have it published. Or, I mean, he's also the president.
Yeah.
So he could just schedule a thing in the Oval Office and just look in the camera and say, here we go. We're doing it. We're doing it live right now. Just purely from a spite standpoint, I think that would have been spicier.
Yeah,
if he had just said, I'm just going to do it anyway.
I was kind of secretly hoping he would do that,
But I don't know. Again, it's all nonsense. None of that matters. I don't have a dog in the fight. I just want to see the maximum amount of hissy fits thrown between them because I feel like that it's more likely that more of the general public sees it as a dog and pony show when they act that way.
Mm-hmm. That's
and so I want more memes. I want more shutdowns.
More chaos.
Yeah, I'm the agent of chaos.
Yeah.
So that's
sure.
that's
more
what
dogs
I
and
want.
ponies.
Yeah. So I think that's good. I think that's a good intro.
Yeah, that's a good intro.
I'm not actually standing out front like we did the other day. That'll be published 3 weeks from now.
Right.
Of doing a monologue, but
you're getting there.
Yeah.
You're getting there.
It's too cold for me to be standing out there doing a monologue.
Yeah, today is one of the coldest days in Tennessee history.
So for people at home who are listening to this right now that are thinking, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
We did a show in front of a live studio audience.
Yep.
And it was awesome.
Awesome.
It was really cool. I just recently saw the edited tape of it, and I gotta say, there was a lot of energy in the room. Not that we aren't just the definition of an energetic program, but there was a lot of energy in the room. It kind of makes you want to have the audience all the time.
Yeah, I know.
It does.
I wish there was a way to do that.
Yeah. I know that there people who know me right now are thinking that vain SOB. He just wants people. And yeah, you're right. I do.
It's a lot easier to do a great show when you have a bunch of people clapping.
In my defense, it is. It's easier to have your segues and your stuff when there's that.
That's right.
That interaction.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's why I said to you, you got to get you have to get the laugh track and the applause sound effects on your board.
I'm not giving you a laugh track.
No, you should. You got to. You got to, so that people at home will know. It's not to get them to laugh. It's so that they'll know I was trying to.
True.
That's what it really is. Guys, we will be back right after this break with our guest today, the great Walter Block. Hey, did you see the playoff games last weekend?
Oh, you're into the sports ball game. Sports ball is not a libertarian sports show. It's a sports show done by a couple of libertarians.
For when you need your bread in circuses.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Gold Standard. I am here with our guest for today, who is the great Walter Block, the Harold E. Wirth Eminent Scholar, Endowed Chair in Economics at Loyola University in New Orleans, Louisiana, where we were just at last summer now. As a senior fellow of the Mises Institute, a regular columnist for LouRockwell.com. And you can find his, I think it's up to a few million peer-reviewed articles now, along with a few thousand books. You can find all of that at walterblock.com. Walter, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
Well, we're very happy to have you. I'm going to go ahead and knock this one out of the way. We can get this done right at the very beginning. Is the city of New Orleans still on fire, or have they managed to put that out from a couple of weekends ago travesty with the L.A. from the St. Louis Rams?
Well, New Orleans is sometimes called Party City, and it's certainly true. We're always having a party or a parade or something like that. And I think that not only New Orleanians, but everybody, even the Rams, I think, would say that this was not only a pass interference, but also a foul. Mm-hmm. Because the other guy rammed his helmet into our guy, so it should have been both a pass interference and a foul. And now we can't say for sure that the Saints would have won had justice prevailed, but there's a good chance they would have. The cynics among us say, well, how many people live in New Orleans? How many people live in Los Angeles? Mm-hmm. What does the NFL want in the Super Bowl? A team from New Orleans, which is a small city, or a team from Los Angeles, which is not a small city? And the answer is pretty obvious. But those are the cynics.
That's not us.
I'm sorry?
Oh, but that's not us. We're not cynical like that. That's not us.
Oh, no, we're not cynics. We're true blue or whatever, true red. I don't know what the color is. But it was really a disgrace. And it sort of puts into the shade the NFL refereeing. Those guys who failed to make that call, it was not a bad call. It was a non-call. Mm-hmm. They should, I don't know, be fired or demoted or something. They shouldn't be given an important game like this. Maybe they should be referees not in college and not in high school, but for middle school. But there, you don't even want them there. I think they should be kicked out of football.
Now, this is an interesting topic. Now, this is something that my good friend Mike Meharry and I had discussed on a program we do called Sports Ball, which, by the way, I wanted to mention, Mike Meharry, he told me that the highlight of his trip down to New Orleans last summer for the Take Human Action Bash was getting to speak with you and have lunch with you. I just wanted you to know that he's a big fan of yours.
Oh, well, that's big kind. Thank you.
But this is an interesting topic. So I had made the point that you brought up the markets and the size of the markets and what would be good for business for the NFL. Now, there's definitely something to that. I actually saw it was headline news on ESPN that they were saying that I think the officiating crews are seven gentlemen, 4 of the 7 have ties to Southern California. And now I'm not saying that means it's a big conspiracy, but I guess what I am saying is that when you have poor performance, that invites conspiracy.
Well, it's always a hypothesis, and then you need some evidence for it, but certainly in economics and in detective stuff, we have this thing, quo bono, who gains? If you see a dead body of an old man, you look and say, well, who's going to get his money? Is it his kids, his wife, whatever? You don't necessarily say that the kids or the wife or a charitable organization that he gives money to are necessarily the murderers, but you look at them and you say, do you have an alibi for the night of the murder or whatever? So similarly, in economics, we say who had a motive for doing this, and one possibility is a tie to L.A. But, I think from the NFL's point of view, this is a disaster because it puts the whole enterprise into question. I mean, if you can't trust the referees, people are going to go maybe to soccer or to rugby or basketball or some other sport. Now, I don't think that the NFL is going to go down the tubes for this one missed call. Mm-hmm. But if they do more of this and it becomes a pattern, the NFL is going to lose not hundreds and not thousands and not hundreds of thousands and not millions of dollars, but billions of dollars, because vast numbers of people will not tune in. Similar to taking a knee. Mm-hmm. Who's that guy who took a knee?
Colin Kaepernick.
I'm sorry?
Colin Kaepernick.
Kaepernick,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of other people took a knee. Now, I support that. I would take a knee. The problem is I've had knee surgery, and if I took a knee, I'd hurt my knee. And if I took a knee, I might not get up that easily. I'm 77 years old. I do engage in athletic events. I do 5K, 10K, half marathon. I'm a race walker. And I'd love to take a knee, not to protest discrimination or racial whatever that Colin Kaepernick is protesting, but protest the government or something, protest the lack of liberty. But I can't because I'm afraid I'll never get up. You have no, every time I drop some chalk, I'm a professor. You have no idea of how far down the floor has gone. It used to be when I was young, the floor was right there. Now I reach way down and I have to have 3 tries. So I'm not against taking a knee, but I acknowledge the fact that a lot of people a lot of football fans don't like that. And when the NFL and the owners were allowing this to occur, they were suffering from empty seats and lack of advertising for their football games. So that would be a controversial one, but I don't think that this non-call is controversial. I think any sports fan or any athlete would realize, and this includes the Rams themselves. I'll bet you those people probably, there's an asterisk attached to their win. Mm-hmm. I think that they wish that they had won honestly. Namely, okay, you had to bash the guy, fine, that's part of the strategy, but then they should have taken the penalty and hoped that they would win anyway. But sometimes I do a half marathon, and right in the middle of it, you have to step over some sort of thing to make sure that you went the right route and you didn't take a shortcut. Mm-hmm. Well, to take a shortcut, cheating at an athletic event, it's sort of gross, yucky. And I don't think even the Rams would have wanted that. I think that the better natures of the Rams would even be against that.
Now, I'll tell you another thing that kind of plays into this as well that we had mentioned earlier in the week is, of course, now you have the rise of sports gambling. With recent legislation being as it is, you have bookies are on the rise in the United States, especially when it comes to sports. And so you're going to have, this is what I'm afraid is going to happen, is I'm perfectly happy with gambling being legalized. It should be. But it seems to me the problem is that if you have leagues that have outcomes that seem to have cast doubts on the legitimacy of it or the effectual of their officiating, then you're going to have people in the gambling world who are going to take those losses, those are going to be the people who are going to say there ought to be a law, there ought to be rule changes, there ought to be safeguards in place so I don't lose my shirt because this Joe Bob over here, he lost me money. And I feel like that's going to open up a Pandora's box that leads us right back around to things being regulated out of existence when we just had a little bit of an opening.
Or people just won't bet on football. Mm-hmm. And they'll be less focused on football. Imagine if we extrapolated from this and every game you had some obviously erroneous non-call, or you had calls that were obviously wrong. And it wasn't just once. I think maybe this whole season and maybe the last 10 years there wasn't anything like this. Mm-hmm. But suppose this occurred every game. 2 or 3 times, extrapolate, and football would be finished. Well, maybe not finished, but football would take a haircut. Mm-hmm.
Well, so here's kind of an interesting little segue that I want to give you. You're talking about football taking a haircut. Is we hear, and this is more from a social media angle, that you'll hear people say that, well, I don't like this social media outlet A or B. I don't like Twitter's rules, or they're being biased against people in my camp. Or I don't like Facebook. Facebook is banning people that I like, and they're not being consistent with their rules. And I can agree with you 100%. And I know there's going to be that person who leaves the comment of, well, they're a private company. They can do whatever they want. Well, okay, yeah, but you can still criticize people that you don't think are being fair. But I feel like that these are kind of similar situations where if Facebook is so big that a lot of people have the attitude of, well, I'm not happy with it, but it's just a monster in the industry, and I don't feel like the alternatives really give me the audience that I need, so I'm just going to have to deal with the problems I have. And it seems like football, the NFL, I should say specifically, National Football League, as opposed to just football in general, it's sort of the same deal, that the NFL is king, right? I mean, the NFL is dominating the sports world, at least in the United States. And so since even the other major athletic pursuits, the NBA, NHL, MLB, they're just not on par with modern day NFL in terms of dollars and ratings. That people kind of have the attitude of, well, I hate these blown calls, I feel like it's rigged, or whatever your attitude is, but I still buy the jerseys and I still buy the tickets and I still watch because my like of the sport is greater than my distaste for the things I don't like. And I feel like that there's that audience out there that would say, is that a market failing? Like if we're trying to extrapolate that out into the economic sphere, is it a failure of the market to have an entity that grows so big and popular, and through its own machinations or through cronyism with government, it becomes just this massive conglomerate? And that the competitors are just nowhere near them in terms of success or money or ratings, that people are willing to put up with a poor product. Does that make sense?
Well, if I had known you were going to curse, I wouldn't have been on your show. You used a curse word, you rotten kid. You said market failure. There ain't no such thing as a market failure, and I want you to stop cursing.
I'm trying to set you up so you can go on a really awesome rant here.
Yes, I'm going to go on a rant.
Okay, here we go.
There is no market failure here. This is a government failure. Before, what I mentioned was, well, if the NFL really screws up, people will go to soccer or rugby, which are two sports that are sort of similar, vaguely similar to football. Mm-hmm. But there are other substitutes. There could be the Walter Block League, the Walter Block Football League, or the American Football League, or the United States, instead of the National Football League, the USFL. Mm-hmm. And they would start a new league if this, remember I was extrapolating and I was saying, if non-calls and bad calls were the order of the day, people would go to other things. Well, one of the other things would be a new league. Now, why doesn't a new league start? Well, first of all, this was only one really egregious error. But suppose there were many egregious errors, would a new football league start? No. Why not? Not because of market failure, but because of government failure. Mm-hmm. A lot of the reason that the NFL and the Major League Baseball and the basketball is so entrenched and so not a good target for competition is because the government is subsidizing them.
Yes.
The government heavily subsidizes those football fields, the arenas, the places where they play. Mm-hmm. Now, if that didn't occur, then you'd have fair competition. Well, now let's get back to the Apple and Facebook and all those. There is no government subsidy. So the question is, well, why doesn't another Schmacebook, or instead of Facebook, Elbow Book, or some competitor, Elbow Book? I don't know why I picked that.
Yeah, I can't imagine why Elbow Book's not taking off. I don't understand.
Okay, well maybe instead of we have to come up. We're pathetic marketers. We should come up with a better name than Elbow Book instead of Facebook. How about Human Book? Human Book sounds good. Okay, so why does a Human Book come up about? And because a lot of these people are very biased against libertarians and conservatives. So why don't a whole bunch of conservatives and libertarians start something because of inertia? And now inertia is just the human condition that, to get up and get a cup of coffee is a pain in the neck. So you just sit there. What is it? Bodies in motion tend to stay in motion. Bodies not in motion tend to stay there. We're both sitting here. So to get up is an extra effort, especially at my age. To get up is a big effort. But there's a tipping point. If they keep doing this, and they keep banning this conservative and that libertarian and this conservative and that libertarian, what I predict will happen, as long as the government doesn't help them, is you'll set up a new group called Human Book, better than Elbow Book, Human Book, and then all the conservatives and all the libertarians will drop their affiliation with Facebook, and Apple, and all the others, and the fact that this might occur, and the fact that conservatives and libertarians are going to start to talk about it, will mean that the present people will say, hey, wait, if that occurs, we'll only have half the market. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have 98% of the market. Maybe we should allow the conservatives and libertarians, and we shouldn't ban this guy and say, well, this is offensive. Anything that goes against political correctness, they deem offensive, and they kick you off. Well, maybe they'll stop doing it. And if they don't, then this will give more impetus to overcome the inertia, and we will have, just like we have a Republican Party and a Democratic Party, like we have libertarians, conservatives, and liberals parties, we will have electronic ways of meeting with each other. Like Skype. Right now, you and I are Skyping.
Sure.
But suppose Skype said, look, you're offensive, I'm offensive, we're not allowing you. Well, then there'd be some other thing instead of Skype, Schmipe or something. We have to come up with a better name than Schmipe. But that's the idea, that there's always potential competition, and you don't have to have actual competition. All you have to do is potential. There was once a railroad in California, and I wrote the book Octopus, one of the muckraking novels. I think it was The Octopus. The railroad was very unfair to the farmers. And it would say, well, if you plant corn, we'll charge you this much. If you plant beans, we'll charge you that much. And then when the crop season was over, they doubled the prices or something. So the question is, why didn't all the farmers band together and make another railroad? Or why didn't some other railroad come in and say, hey, the ABC railroad is no good. We'll be the DEF railroad and we'll treat you better. Well, the reason is you had to get permission of the California State Assembly and the politicians. And there's that expression: you can't buy a politician, you can only rent one. Because they're not reliable. Well, it was government failure. It wasn't market failure. So that would be one answer. Now, I wanted to get back to something else. Right before we went on air, what you said is that the weather here, where are you now?
So we're in southern Middle Tennessee, so we're about an hour south of Nashville.
Oh, wow. And you said it's cold there. How cold is it there?
Oh, God, what is it was like 25, 20-ish. Yeah, 20. Yeah.
Okay, well, here it's like 60 or so, maybe 65.
Yeah, I know, it's awful. Well, here's the thing, though, is that you know how the South is that when it gets to be in the middle of July or August, it'll basically be equally terrifyingly hot all over the Southeast. But in the colder weather months, I think far enough south into the Gulf, it'll stay at least modest. Whereas here it gets, but see, you know what's terrible though is it gets cold here, but we don't have the pretty white snow of a cold environment. We just have freezing rain and just gray and drizzle, and that's what we have.
Well, this will teach you Northerners. You guys invaded us Southerners, and you're paying the price, and you deserve it. But in Chicago, my understanding is that it's like minus 20 Fahrenheit.
Yes.
And in Alberta, it's probably minus 50. I remember one time when I was living in Canada, I heard that somewhere in Alberta or Manitoba, it was colder there than on Mars.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think this was 3 years ago now, because it was when we had that polar vortex phenomenon, and because there was a city or a town right on the Canadian-American border. I think somewhere, it may be in Minnesota or maybe the Great Lakes area, but they said that their low temperature at like 2 a.m. that morning was colder than on the equator at Mars. And
yes. That's pretty chilly.
Yeah.
Now, remember the point that I made before we went on air, and I said that's government's fault. By the way, where is global warming now that we need some global warming? And, in the 1970s, the leftists was saying, well, the Earth is getting too cool and it's capitalism's fault. And then in the 90s, they said the Earth is getting too warm and it's capitalism's fault. I mean, no matter what the indictment is, the verdict is clear. It's always capitalism's fault. And then in about 10 years ago, they started with this global climate change, and the climate is always changing. And guess whose fault that is? Capitalism's. But the way I see it is very different. The way I see it, the weather, it's too cold or too warm, whatever it is, it's government's fault. Why? Because, first of all, the government takes half the GDP through taxes. And if it didn't take half the GDP, we'd be twice as rich. Give or take. And then what do they do with their half? They regulate the heck out of us, so much so that probably we'd be twice as rich anyway. So we're 4 times richer than we otherwise would have been. Well, if we were 4 times richer, I don't say that we would solve the weather. I don't say that we would solve the rain. I mean, the solution to the rain is it should rain from 2 in the morning till 5 in the morning. It should rain when we want it to rain, not when it wants to rain. None of the freedom for clouds. The hell with cloud freedom. We want rain when we want it. And I don't say we would cure cancer or AIDS or heart stroke or whatever if we were 4 times richer, but surely we'd make some progress in some of that. Look, in 100 years from now, if we don't blow each other up before then, we'll probably be quadruply rich. And you know that in 100 years from now, given that we're quadruply richer than we are now, we would have solved some of these problems. So I don't say that we would solve the weather, and I don't say we'd solve the rain. The rain is sort of a pain in the neck because in New Orleans, we're always having outdoor parades. And sometimes it rains when we're having a parade, Mardi Gras, the parade gets rained out. No, we want the rain to go from 2 to 4 in the morning or something like that. So I think that the weather or disease or whatever is really the government's fault that is bad weather. Because if we were much richer, we'd have cloud seeding, or I don't know how they would fix it. Somehow they would fix it. Maybe get gigantic fans blowing the hot air up from the equator, and in the winter, gigantic fans blowing the cold air from the polar ice caps. I don't know how they would do it. I'm not a technologist or an engineer. But I assume that if we were quadruply rich right now, they'd come up with something to fix some of these problems. So I'm happy to say any problem, underarm smell, is all the government's fault.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because we've had Bob Murphy on the show, which I believe you were with Bob Murphy on his new program just recently, I believe, and I know Bob Murphy writes a lot about environmental and economics, and I believe I'm getting this from him that he had made the point that whenever anybody says global warming or cooling or climate change, any of those buzzwords, it's just presumed a negative connotation. But of course, if say for instance the world over goes up an average of 2 degrees, well, there's going to be the flora and fauna that benefit from having more environment that's slightly warmer. Even though, and it may be true that there's some that does not benefit, but if there is give and take, then why is it always presumed to be negative no matter what? And if goodness forbid that the prevailing mainstream thought was that, we're actually kind of happy that it's 5 degrees warmer, I bet they would not applaud capitalism then.
Well, it's always capitalism's fault.
Yeah.
Ask Bernie Sanders. Ask that young woman who's now a congressman, ACO.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everyone's favorite new congresswoman. Yeah.
Right. I mean, for her, it's all capitalism's fault, and that's the end of it. But see, the way I see it, what we should really have, and we would have when we're quadruply rich, is not 5 degrees warmer or 5 degrees colder. Rather, the whole Earth would be sort of more moderate. Namely, in the winter, you have fans going from the equator up, and in the summer, you have fans going from the polar ice caps on both sides, the Antarctic and the Arctic, down toward the equator, so that the whole Earth is better. And you can grow more stuff. And now I don't know how this is going to work. You'd have to get real big fans, but that would be, say, one way of doing it. And certainly cloud seeding, it sort of ticks me off that it rains when I want to do something, and I'm not the only one. We get our plans disappointed. So I agree with Bob Murphy. He's a buddy of mine, a co-author of mine. I'm a big fan of his. That warming or cooling is not necessarily bad. Yes, it'll hurt some parts of the Earth and it won't hurt other parts. And the left-wing environmentalists, I call them the watermelons, because they're really red on the inside and green on the outside. I mean, there are certain people that like to run other people's lives. And for a long time, they were doing very well with socialism. And then the Soviet Union fell apart and the German wall fell apart. And for a while, socialism was on the back burner. Nowadays, it's not, but for a while it was. So they had to come up with some other vehicle with which to use to rule the rest of us. They come up with environmentalism. Now socialism is having a resurgence, and Bernie Sanders is saying, you got to be socialist, sort of like the Scandinavian countries. But some of my research is very relevant to that. And what I did with my co-authors is we ranked all the countries in the world in terms of economic freedom. And then we asked, well, who are the rich ones and who are the poor ones? And you'll be amazed, I'm sure you'll be shocked to find out, that there's a positive correlation between economic freedom and prosperity. Namely, the socialist countries are doing very badly. So now take the Scandinavian countries. Bernie is always saying, well, we should be like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, places like that. Guess where those 4 countries fit in on the Economic Freedom Index? They're in the top quartile.
Yeah.
They're among the most capitalist free enterprise countries. Yes, their welfare status, and they do redistribute money. But in terms of monetary policy and international trade and regulations and stuff like that, they're pretty free enterprise. So when Bernie says that I like those places, they're socialist, I would say I like those places too, they're capitalist.
You know what? I just have to say, we're almost out of time, but I just have to let you know, my favorite type of episode of the show is the episodes where we have our little sheet here with our notes, and I don't need it because we don't talk about any of it. We just throw it away. We don't need this. I'm never going to prepare show notes ever again. So, Walter, I've got one more question for you, and then we're going to do our housekeeping. We're going to get you out of here on this one. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Well, this is you serious about that?
Walter, we have asked every guest that we've had on this program pretty much, and I'm not going to give you the cop out of letting you know anybody else's answers, but I will tell you it's pretty evenly divided between the likes of Woods, Murphy, Michael Bolden, Suzanne Sherman, Jim Bovard. I mean, all sorts of folks that have been on the show. Blake, it is pretty much about 50-50. It's about 50-50.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you an answer that will be on neither side.
Of course.
Because this is a continuum problem. So what's the continuum problem? The continuum problem is we know that if you go to bed with a 5-year-old girl, even if she agrees, you're still a statutory rapist because we don't think that she has the capability of agreeing to any such thing.
Go on.
On the other hand, you go to bed with a 25-year-old woman, and she agrees, you're not a statutory rapist because we think that a 25-year-old woman, as long as she's not mentally imbalanced or something like that, is perfectly capable of deciding whether she should go to bed with you. Well, where do you draw the line? How do you determine where the statutory rape starts? Is it 15? Is it 16? Is it 17? Is it 14? And then does the age of the man matter? Like if it's a 16-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl, is it statutory rape? And now suppose it's a 15 or a 16-year-old girl and it's a 30-year-old man. Does that make it more? The point is that there's no right answer. And there's no right answer stemming from libertarianism, and there's no right answer stemming from any other political philosophy. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch you. You see that fist? Now, you're in Tennessee. And I'm in New Orleans. Do you have a right to shoot me? Or suppose you have an ICBM. Do you have a right to let one loose because I initiated violence against you? No, because one, the context is ridiculous. I'm not going to punch you. Secondly, I'm a little far away from you. I don't know, 800 miles or whatever it is. But now suppose the fist gets closer and closer, and suppose the light glints off of my watch and we're in a dark alley, and I come at you and you think it's a knife. Well, yes, you have a right to plug me. Well, the point is, how close do you have to get, and in what context? If it's a play and we're in a movie or a play, I can get real close and you shouldn't shoot me because that's what that's what the script said. I had to do that, and you had to do whatever you had to do, among which is not to punch me or not to shoot me. So it's a continuum problem. And now I get back to your question. Look, I'm a professor. I'm never supposed to answer questions directly.
I'm so excited to hear how this turns out.
I'm sorry?
I'm so excited to hear how this turns out. We are waiting with bated breath.
The answer is that the hot dog bun, a hot dog in a bun, is on the continuum. So there's no right answer. It's not clearly a sandwich, but then it's not, I mean, look, your tie. Is your tie a sandwich? No, your tie is not a sandwich. Is this wristwatch a sandwich? No, that's clear. There's this thing called Roy G. Biv, R-O-Y-G-B-I-V, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
Yep.
Well, where does orange and yellow, where does the yellow stop and orange begins? No one knows. There's no fixed, it's a continuum problem. So my answer to your hot dog question, is it a sandwich or not, is you can't say. There's no right answer. It's not a tie, which is not a sandwich, and it's not a ham sandwich, which is a sandwich. It's sort of a quasi-demi-semi-sandwich. So that would be my answer.
I want you to know that you are now on a very short list. It's only you and one other gentleman, Jim Bovard. Because Jim Bovard's answer was, it depends on what state you're in. So now you and Jim Bovard are the only two people who have given a non-answer to the question. Everybody else took a stance, and I applaud them for taking a stance, even though they might be wrong. But you're now in esteemed company. So
Well, this is why they call me Walter Moderate Block.
that is it. That's what I've always heard. Walter, do you have any links or anything you want to share with the audience before we go?
Well, just walterblock.com, and if you're interested in my stuff, go there and you'll see more of my stuff, or Google me. And you better Google me quick, because Google might not be around much longer if the schmoogle comes up and and competes with them.
This episode will go down infamously as the one that spurned so many innovations in the market and in social media, in sports leagues. This has been fantastic. Walter, thank you so much for joining us. Hold on for just a second. We're going to be right back after this break.
Have you ever been talking politics with a friend and told, if you don't like it here, you should just move to Somalia?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the sandy beaches of Mogadishu, Sherry and I bring you Postcards from Somalia, one of the newer products of Little L Productions, where we take on all of the fallacies of the people who say, if you don't like it, you can just get out.
Wow.
Yeah, that guy, man. Oh, wow. That has got to be the best answer to the hot dog question we have ever had, hands down.
I gotta be honest with you. I have talked to a couple of people, and I had said that maybe we'll shelve the hot dog sandwich question pretty soon.
Really?
Or maybe what we'll do, because this is season 2 of the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, in a blink of an eye, season 2 will be over and it'll be time. It seems like season 2 just started, but it's
Yeah.
actually already been like 5 or 6 months.
I know.
So we're really like halfway through season
we
2
really
already. I think this will be season 2's bit. Season 2 will be, is a hot dog a sandwich?
hot dog a
and then starting with season 3, it'll be something new.
Something new. But how do you get a better question than that? You're gonna have to look really hard.
There's questions out there that I think will be good, but
Like, is a tomato a fruit?
well,
Yes,
it is.
tomato's a fruit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that's just it is.
Yeah,
That's,
it is.
But I mean, but a hot dog is a sandwich. It
hot
just
dog
is.
is a
So it's
sandwich.
really the same thing. Yeah.
It just depends on who you ask.
But I'm glad. The reason I bring that up is I'm glad that we decided to extend that out through to the end of season 2. Because if we had shut it down this week, we would have not gotten
That. Awesome.
that awesome answer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Blake,
Yes.
what did you learn on today's show?
Honestly, I'm becoming more of a Saints fan.
Okay.
I just am. I have to admit it. Other than that, the hot dog question is a gray area.
No, it's a hot dog
I
is
don't
a
know.
sandwich.
You heard the man. You
No.
heard him.
No.
You heard him. gray area.
I did hear him.
He's a gray area. What was
And-
that term he used? I can't remember. He's
It's a continuum
it's a
problem.
continuum.
Yeah.
It's a continuum problem. Kind of like yin yang.
I will say though, we might have to figure out a way to phrase the question so that people understand that it's a yes or no. Because he took the cop out of
You thought that was a cop out?
no, it was a very elaborate.
It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
Because in defense of Bovard, he did imply that it's a yes or no. He's just saying that depending on what
Where you are.
jurisdiction you're
Right.
in,
Right.
they might have a different attitude.
Right.
But it must be one or the other, I think. It's still what he would say.
Well, you know what my dad used to tell me?
What?
When somebody asks you a question you don't have an answer to, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit.
We'd gone this whole episode without a swear word, and you just said one.
Sorry. I had to ruin it that time.
You're the one
But
who
it was
ruined
such
it
a
this
good
time.
chance to use that phrase.
It is. Can you bleep yourself?
I complete myself.
Can you bleep yourself, but like do it like instead of it just being beep, like like do something funny, like a little thing,
like a little black mark.
like you know how like Craig Ferguson used to do, like he would go like ooh la la, and he would have like a little flag over his. Like we should do something like
try
that.
Something I don't know. We'll see.
Like we could do something like that, but it's libertarian related. So maybe it'll be like the black and
Maybe
gold.
I'll just put a V for Vendetta mask over my face real fast. I can't do that. Can I do that? I could try.
Maybe that. Maybe like do like the little anarchist or like a little gold standard thing.
Little gold standard
and it says
kind of like this.
And it says, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with taxation is theft. And it'll do some,
Taxation is theft.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
I think we could.
Yeah, we should do that from now on.
I like that.
Yeah.
This is why we pay you the big bucks right
I
there.
don't get paid nothing.
Speaking of that, if you want Blake to get paid and you enjoy episodes like we had today with Walter, please consider supporting the show. You can go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com. You can click on that little donate button at the top, and then you put in the money, and then you click send, and then I take it.
And I still don't get paid.
No, I give half of it to Blake, but half of zero is zero.
Yeah.
So if you give money, then Blake will have some money.
Yeah. Maybe we could split a cheeseburger.
And you'll get more alpacas and llamas and.
No. Hey, you know what I'm getting today?
I saw on.
I'm getting a llama.
Yeah, a guardian llama.
And just for fun.
Yeah.
So we're talking about in the car last night with my kids, right?
Yeah.
So each one of my kids, each one of them got $100 for Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, you know what they decided to do with their Christmas money?
What?
Pull it together and buy a mini pony. So now I got to have a mini pony. My kids bought a mini pony.
You know what? You got some weird kids.
Well, they're learning how to farm.
It's the farm life for you.
It's the farm life. Look at my jeans.
Look at that.
They all
look
look
at
like
how
that.
I'm dressed.
They all look like that.
So now we won't get a comment about how crappy dressed the host is. Now it'll be your turn that somebody will say.
I look crappy.
The producer doesn't look very professional.
It's like, what's wrong with that guy? He looks like a farmer.
Yeah.
You should get dressed up. The set looks way better.
Yeah.
Take that, Ronan. I heard you. I saw it. I know where you live. That's right. Guys, thank you so much for joining the program. Facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter's @Alan Mosley. TheGoldStandarPodcast.com. We'll see you next week.